We who believe in freedom, we can't rest. We who believe in freedom, we can't rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom, we can't rest. We who believe in freedom, we can't rest until it comes. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. Oh, Lord, we've been struggling so long, we must be free. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. Oh, Lord, we've been struggling so long, we must be free. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone, way hoping that a heavenly land. We who believe in freedom, we can't rest. We who believe in freedom, we can't rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom, we can't rest. We who believe in freedom, we can't rest until it comes.
Wow. Please give it up for Mary Williams. What a gift, not just the voice, but to feel the understanding that she conveys of the work that you do every day, sharing the humanity of your clients and standing up against injustice. Welcome to the Center for Death Penalty Litigation's 2020 J. Kirk Osborn Award celebration. We're broadcasting live from the home of Gerda Stein in Raleigh. Gerda is the Director of Public Education for Cdpl. Please know that everyone off camera is wearing a mask and is socially distanced as we try to stay safe, as I trust that you are as well. We have a great program lined up, and I would invite you, if you haven't already, to say hello in the chat, greet Ty Hunter, the 2020 Osborn Award winner, and let us know that you're here. I so appreciate you taking the time tonight to be with us, and you can participate in the chat function throughout the evening. It's never been more important for all of us to be together, because the movement to end the death penalty and the larger movement for racial justice and reform of our criminal punishment system has reached a critical and truly unprecedented moment. I suspect that some of you have seen the hashtag 2020 sucks. And indeed, this has been a very challenging year, not least because of the global pandemic, but also the public execution of George Floyd and the killings of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, among others. But in the Capitol Defense community in North Carolina, we have seen fantastic victories. In the past 10 weeks, court rulings have cleared the way for 6 of our clients to leave death row. That is truly unprecedented. Similarly, we have had no new death sentences at trial, and 2020 marks the 14th year of no executions. Our work is making a difference. We've also seen a great awakening in our country as people realize what we have long known. In the words of the North Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice, in our courts, African Americans are treated more harshly, punished more severely, and are more likely to be presumed guilty. Tonight, I want to say unequivocally, Black lives matter. We've always believed that at Cdpl, but at this time it's even more important that we are more intentional and vocal in our support. We stand with all the amazing individuals and organizations, the ACLU of North Carolina, Emancipate NC, who are working to dismantle racist policing, prosecution, and incarceration, and working to topple our society's monuments to white supremacy, both literal and figurative. And we know that the death penalty is one of those monuments to white supremacy. I hope you have had the chance to see Racist Roots, an online project that Cdpl launched just 10 days ago that explores the origins of the North Carolina death penalty and its history and its links to slavery and white supremacy. The death penalty began as a white-run system for enforcing racial hierarchy, and it remains firmly rooted in that history. If you haven't seen it already, go to racistroots.org. The project includes a compelling history and also essays by contributors like Sherilyn Ifill of LDF, Cdpl's founding director Henderson Hill, the historian Tim Tyson, and Dawn Blagrove of Emancipate NC. Tonight, we are here to celebrate Ty Hunter and the hard work that he and so many others in this community have done to end the unjust death penalty. Work like the Racial Justice Act. This summer, after more than a decade of work, we achieved a once-in-a-lifetime victory in the North Carolina Supreme Court. And we now have some of the most exciting work laid out before us. Here's the story of how we got to this moment.
More than a decade ago, in the wake of the exonerations of several innocent Black men from North Carolina's death row, a few people in the Capitol defense community had an idea. We wanted to force North Carolina to reckon with the death penalty's legacy of racism. Many people said it couldn't be done, or that it would make those in power too angry and shouldn't be done. But we pushed forward anyway. We worked with Carolina Justice Policy Center, the NAACP, Murder Victims' Families for Reconciliation, and other agitators to build grassroots support. We enlisted partners in the legislature, especially members of the Legislative Black Caucus, and helped craft the Racial Justice Act, a first-of-its-kind law that would allow people on death row to bring forward evidence that racism contributed to their death sentences. The state would not be allowed to execute anyone who proved that race was a significant factor in their sentence. This law prompted the first-ever statewide investigation of racism's role in capital trials. A study by researchers at Michigan State University found that, across North Carolina, crimes against white people were twice as likely to be punished with the death penalty. It also found that Black citizens were systematically denied the right to sit on capital juries, silencing their voices in a system that disproportionately sentences Black people to execution. We used this evidence of clear and compelling statistical patterns, along with a trove of evidence from individual cases, to file claims on behalf of our death row clients And in 2012, the first 4 won their claims and were resentenced to life imprisonment. But that was only the beginning of the fight. As Brian Stevenson testified at the first RJA hearing, the history of racial justice is one of overcoming resistance. When there is an advance, inevitably there is pushback. Some were angry that we dared call out racism in our courts. In 2013, a legislature hostile to seeing African Americans operate the levers of power, whether it be in voting or in serving on a jury, repealed the RJA and tried to invalidate all remaining claims filed under the law. A few years later, the North Carolina Supreme Court also overturned the cases of the 4 clients who'd already won. One of these clients had worked his way to medium custody. Another had gotten her GED and reconnected with her children. All 4 of them had to go back to death row. That was an incredibly painful time of loss. Many thought the RJA had been a failure. But we refused to give up. We simply couldn't allow the kind of evidence we'd uncovered, clear proof that racism infects the courtrooms where life and death decisions are made, to be ignored and thrown away. So we kept fighting for our clients' constitutional right to have their RJA claims heard in court. We had to bring their evidence into the light. In August 2019, we argued for this right in front of the North Carolina Supreme Court, and in June 2020, the court responded with a courageous decision. It issued a ruling granting every person on death row with a pending RJA claim the right to present their evidence in court. The decision breathed new life into the Racial Justice Act. Claims that illuminate the ties between racism and the death penalty will now be heard in dozens of North Carolina counties. Our state can finally begin the process of reckoning with the racist legacy of a punishment that threatens innocent people and values white lives above all others. Now we enter RJA the next decade. There is so much more work to be done. We have always counted on the support of this community, and we are grateful to continue to work beside you.
Cdpl could not have pulled off a decade of RJA litigation without you. Now, this is a fundraiser, and one of the great things about being the executive director of a small nonprofit is that I have a board, a fantastic board. And I'd like you now to please turn your attention to an important message from Tariq Aganzi, the Vice President of Cdpl's Board of Directors.
Thank you, Gretchen. Wow. Listening to Gretchen's remarks and watching that video made me want to stand up and cheer. I want to cheer for all the people who fought so hard against seemingly impossible odds, who believed when things seemed hopeless. To the family members who prayed and cried and pushed, to the people directly impacted by this racist system who endured unimaginable disappointment, and to Cdpl and the coalition of lawyers, investigators, mitigation specialists, and all who gave so much of themselves in this fight. I say, you are amazing, and thank you. As Gretchen mentioned, I am Tariq Redfield Ganzi, and I have the pleasure of serving as Vice President of Cdpl's Board of Directors. It is my task tonight to ask you to give to support an organization that is near and dear to my heart. But honestly, I'm not sure that there's more that needs to be said to make the case for supporting Cdpl's work. So I'll simply say this. The Center for Death Penalty Litigation is creating lasting change on a relatively small budget. But I'm not asking you to give because of Cdpl's budget. I'm asking you to give because you want to be a part of something great. Because you can envision a future that is better than our present, and you are willing to work towards that future. I'm asking you to give because you care. You care about the people being trampled upon by an unjust system. You care about human rights. You value racial justice. I'm asking you to give because you know Cdpl's impact. The Center for Death Penalty Litigation is changing entire systems but perhaps more importantly, we are changing lives. Finally, I'm asking you to give because you believe in yourself, and you know that your partnership with the Center for Death Penalty Litigation is a powerful force for justice. So, if you are able and willing and so moved, please visit www.cdpl.org and make a donation in any amount. Thank you for your generosity tonight and in the future.
In the early 1990s, Frank Wells was practicing law with Steve Schmidley in Asheboro. At that time, I was practicing in the same town as a solo practitioner. We ran into each other at a party one night, and as lawyers often do, especially young ones, we began to talk about the law. One thing Frank said that night has stuck with me because of what things that unfolded in the years that followed. "You and I should try a death penalty case together sometime," he said. Since 1994 and Frank's death this year, we tried 9 capital murders together, and I have no idea how many other first-degree murders we pled out from under the death penalty in cases we tried as co-counsel or worked as co-counsel. Working with Frank as a law partner, and for many years there were only the two of us, was simply the best professional experience of my life. Frank was smart, he was dedicated, and although he was more tactful than I was with clients, opposing counsel, and judges, he never, ever backed down. He was dedicated to what Brian Stevenson famously called just mercy. His argument to the Supreme Court in the State versus Corey Bennett case was a final and crowning achievement. He argued it just a few months before he died. We suspected he had won the case, but you never want to say that out loud before the decision is announced. A few days after Frank died, Gretchen texted me how unfair it would feel if the court announced their decision granting Corey relief and Frank wasn't around to hear about it. I've thought about that a lot. I think that Frank knows about the decision. Frank was more than just a great lawyer. He and Gay devoted themselves to their 3 daughters, Anna, Emily, and Molly. Frank was fiercely proud of their achievements and their success. He was deeply devoted to his wife, Gay. His wife and daughters were the driving force in his life, including his professional life. He taught a Sunday school class in the Methodist Church. It was a radical left-wing Sunday school class, but it was Sunday school nonetheless. Frank was also a talented musician. He was a mandolin player in the famous bluegrass band of Fast Eddie and the Scumbags. Unlike at least one other member of that band, Frank actually was a great musician. He took up the mandolin in the mid-90s. He was very serious about it and very accomplished. He never did anything by halves. It was typical of Frank that he was willing to serve on the board of the Cdpl, and he never turned down the opportunity to teach or mentor young lawyers facing death penalty cases. He enjoyed serving as faculty in Wymore training sessions and in the Capitol College. He dealt with the distress and desperation of deeply wounded, agitated, abused, and mentally ill clients facing the death penalty. He did that with calm, patience, and empathy. He also knew how to calm down agitated co-counsel when necessary, as it often was. Frank and Gay lived only a few doors down the road from Becky and me, and he and I practiced law together for nearly 30 years. His death was a loss of terrible, dreadful magnitude to his family, to my family, to me, and to his larger family of lawyers and others who stand up for those otherwise friendless people whose death is sought by our legal system. He will be sorely missed.
There have been so many days since April when I still can't believe that Frank is gone. But as John said, I'd like to think that Frank is with us here tonight. It's time now for a special guest. One of the advantages of an online show is that people from around the country can participate. And I understand from the chat function that more than 100 of you are online from places as far away as California. We're so happy that all of you are here. I want to introduce tonight a true luminary of our movement, a crusader for racial justice, the attorney who argued Amadeo versus Zant, Snyder versus Louisiana, and Foster versus Chapman in the U.S. Supreme Court and won those cases. Please join me in listening to the founder of the Southern Center for Human Rights, Stephen Bright.
I am so glad to be a small part of this great evening celebrating Ty Hunter. I've been going to North Carolina for years, probably since the 1980s, and every time I went, Ty Hunter was right in the middle of whatever was going on. He was either the head of the Resource Center or the Appellate Division or the whole indigent defense system for the state of North Carolina, arguing cases at the United States Supreme Court. And I remember being in North Carolina not long after the Racial Justice Act had passed and seeing all these people, incredible people, gathering data, putting together information, all of these things that were going on to make the case that race was a factor in cases, death penalty cases in North Carolina. And I said at the time, thank goodness North Carolina was the state that adopted this Racial Justice Act, because I'm not sure that any other state would have had the infrastructure, the volunteers, the organization to gather all this information. It was really exciting what was going on there at the time, and of course it became very important in the decisions that Judge Weeks ultimately delivered with regard to the Racial Justice Act. So I'm just so happy to be a part of this and to say that Ty Hunter's been such a great person, not only for North Carolina, but the whole indigent defense and death penalty efforts in the entire country. So I'm proud to be a part of this tonight. Congratulations, Ty, and all the best.
It's now time to honor the 2020 Osborn Award winner, Ty Hunter. How to capture a 4-decade career dedicated to indigent defense and defending men and women facing the death penalty. How to capture a nearly 3-decade friendship with my mentor and former boss. I first met Ty in 1992 when I came to work in North Carolina at the North Carolina Resource Center, which was lodged in the Appellate Defender's Office. Henderson Hill was my boss, and I thought of Ty as my Uber boss. This was years after Mary Ann Talley had hired Ty to be an assistant public defender in Fayetteville, and Adam Stein had hired Ty to be an assistant appellate defender. And it was also after Ty had won McCoy versus North Carolina in the United States Supreme Court, a decision that resulted in dozens of life sentences for death row prisoners in our state. Ty was the appellate defender, and this was, of course, before the founding of IDS. And the Appellate Defender's Office was really a major player in capital defense. Ty was the person who found lawyers for post-conviction defendants. And he was a chief strategist. He was with us the night that we waited for the North Carolina Supreme Court to grant a stay to Wendell Flowers, who was hell-bent on giving up his appeals and being executed. And then, years later, Ty went to Governor Hunt and convinced him to do what he had never done before, which was to grant clemency to a death row prisoner and spare Wendell Flowers' life. Ty was also with Henderson and me the night that his former client, our client Harvey Green, was executed at Central Prison in Raleigh. Ty, of course, went on to build North Carolina's indigent defense system, and he later became just my regular boss as the executive director of Cdpl. He was part of the team that represented the Cumberland Four in the 2012 Racial Justice Act hearings, and he argued passionately for the RJA defendants in the 2019 arguments in the North Carolina Supreme Court. After I'd known Ty for about 10 years, someone who'd known him and worked closely with him about twice that amount of time said to me, you know, Ty's got that humor and his affable manner. But don't be fooled. When need be, he can be fierce. And I thought, fierce? Ty? He's not fierce. But actually he is. When need be, Ty is strong and powerful. There were moments in those RJA hearings when Ty said exactly the perfect thing at just the right time, calling out the perjury of the state's prosecutors, confronting an extremely hostile judge in a recusal hearing. Ty also has tremendous empathy. He and I took a road trip to Charlotte years ago, and we got to talking about his youth growing up in Greensboro. And I learned in that conversation that his commitment to justice, his commitment to the diverse people with diverse frailties of humankind, was rooted in his personal experience. And I remember I asked him, what made the difference for you? How did you become the person you are today? And he didn't hesitate a beat. He immediately said, Wanda, his wife of more than 40 years, who's also here with us tonight. Ty, I want to thank you so much for your work challenging the powerful on behalf of the disenfranchised. Thank you for your dedication to family, to community, to justice. Thank you for your fierce advocacy and your unwavering commitment to the men and women facing the death penalty in North Carolina. I'm going to hand you the plaque now and show it to you, and then it's going to be your turn to talk. But congratulations. So proud of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gretchen. Kirk Osborn was a friend and a neighbor of mine, so it's especially poignant for me. I was a great admirer of his and of Frank's as well. So I'm thinking of both of them tonight. Steve Bright's very kind words. Most of you know Steve Bright's a real hero in our movement, and I will never forget, I was at a conference for death penalty lawyers, we called them, up in Airlie, Virginia. This was probably 30 years ago, and Steve Bright was giving a talk, and one of the things he talked about, he says, anytime you're in this business, there's always someone, your parents or relatives or your next door neighbor, that says, how do you do this work? How do you do this when you're working with these people who want to kill other people or think it's okay to kill people? And Steve Bright says he answers within 1 second. He says, well, you get used to dealing with those prosecutors after a while. I never forgot that. But Steve had his finger on what's really special about North Carolina, and certainly not me. I haven't done anything in my whole career that I didn't have help with, support, inspiration. And I think what's unique about North Carolina is the community we have. And so I accept this reward, and I am proud to accept this reward as a part of that community. And we still have more work to do, but I think it's fair to say we're in better shape tonight than we have been since the death penalty was reinstated. And so I'm ready to do more, and I hope everyone who's out there is ready to do more as you can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ty. Thank you so much. That was wonderful, just as we've come to expect. Congratulations.
Thank you.
To everyone watching, thank you so much for being with us, joining this community tonight. Thank you especially to those generous souls who served as sponsors and to everyone who contributed to support our work. I so look forward to seeing all of you in person in 2021. Thank you again, and good night.